Crowdfunding for Goldenfox Pictures is supported by my patrons, including Science Steel Rail, Jack Foley, Courtney Bright, Thomas Fan 3751, and Brandon Bishop. Thank you all so much for your support, and to all my viewers, I hope you enjoy this video. Yikes! That's freaky! Not even I grinned that fast when I was a kid on Christmas morning. The holidays are always a joy to have. Christmas, Hanukkah, there's always something magical to you and others who participate in the celebration at hand. This is especially the case when it comes to meeting your uncles, relatives, and in-laws, as you get to interact with them for the occasion. Simply the good old times to when I got to visit my cousins for the night before Christmas morning. But I digress. Unfortunately, others have a harder time when it comes to meeting their relatives, and Hearthbreakers is the one to immediately tackle on the subject matter. Not too surprising, since an episode of MLP has to have a conflict, but this can definitely relate to those who have that stress and frustration. As I go over this episode, the most I'll be talking about is the Pie family, their interactions with the apples, and what impressions I got from the family activities. As Hearthbreakers lays out that familiar formula, it shares a simple common theme: how everyone celebrates their holiday in their own fashion and learning to respect them. Immediately, that does provide a rather important message to kids, since they're always accustomed to their own ways of celebrating their holidays, and will need to be open-minded in their ways of celebrating. This is shortly hinted when Twilight explains to Applejack how both she and Spike celebrate theirs. This being in mind, Applejack is confronted with the Pie family's lifestyle after the apples spend their Hearth Warming Eve together. We say that the family resorts to rocks of any sort, which is what Applejack has taken issue with. At first glance, I wasn't too fond of it either, and it was easy for me to side with Applejack. But ideally, I understood more on why the Pie family's activities were present. Most of the episode consists of awkward moments based on how they all interacted, but not to the point where I cringed or turned away. It was straightforward with what they do: bounce off each other and provide a few moments. Some were a hit and miss, and others were pretty genuine. There are two major factors that I was excited about: Applejack and Pinkie Pie's continuation of whether or not they are related to the family bloodline, and the other of which, finally getting to know Pinkie's family based on a flashback from the Cutie Mark Chronicles in Season 1. After how much fun I had with Pinkie Apple Pie, I always appreciated how Applejack and Pinkie bounced off each other.
Of course! We might be related! Hey! I was gonna say that! Stop saying what I'm saying! You stop it first!
As most of the conflict was trying to make the best of their time spent for the holidays, I was able to feel for both sides. Applejack obviously struggling to cope with the Pie's activities, but Pinkie was trying her hardest to stay optimistic to the overall awkwardness of the two families. It shows a good chemistry of how they still try to work off each other over anything they encounter, even if the results were disastrous. The following activities from the Pie family first begins with having rock soup, which, if you ask me, that does not sound very good for your diet. This was one of the few moments that I wasn't enjoying or agreeing with. To an extent, it felt like a big joke since the Pie's biggest family trait is that they're a rock farm. We get it. And in experiencing this, it looked disgusting, and it made me question on how the apples would deal with such a dish. If that was the intention from the writers, I'd say points for trying, but it was taking away my suspension of disbelief. What follows afterwards is chiseling rocks to form their own hearth-warming dolls. This was one of the more interesting activities. It reminded me of when I was carving pumpkins for Halloween when I was a kid, and putting myself in the shoes of a child, participating to anything relating to arts and crafts has always been something I can never go wrong with. The next was splitting up the families to find a particular stone in which whoever finds it gets to raise the hearth-warming flag. Or at least that's what the viewers would think of it at first.
A picture? I've been looking for a real stone, Pinkie Pie.
That would be weird.
Pinkie, the search for an illustration of a stone is just as weird, if not weirder. You really think so? Whatever. The final part of the tradition was hiding and finding each other's presents, which easily reminded me of Easter. As a kid, I would go on scavenger hunts and finding plastic eggs that carried candy. So it doesn't sound too bad of an idea as the search comes off rewarding as you get to see what gifts you got. The downside though was that Pinky stated that it was rather rare for anyone to find one, and if it was never found, there would be no gift. That's depressing. Regardless, all of these activities became hilariously reminiscent of other holidays that weren't Christmas related. Yet at the same time, I was able to understand Applejack's side, mainly because of how her ways of celebrating the holiday was similar and comfortable like mine, and possibly to many others. And seeing that none of those were a part of what Applejack has had, it was a bummer feeling so alienated. So when I saw what she did for the Pie family the next morning, decorating the farm in her style, I surely felt relieved. But was it right of hers? Absolutely not. But I understood why she did it. Diving into the Pie family members, we're introduced to Marble, Limestone, and the parents Igneous, Rock Pie, and Cloudy Quartz. Unfortunately, when getting to know them, I was rather underwhelmed. They weren't bad characters by any means, but they were all in a series of extreme quirks. To some degree, I'm not too surprised about it since Pinky was extremely energetic and Maud was extremely monotone. The first of whom to address is Marble Pie, who is easily a Fluttershy cookie cutter as she remains as a silent introvert. Her character and personality is cute, but having her being silent was something I wasn't too fond of. As is, I'm already sick and tired of Big Mac having the silent treatment. This doesn't help their interactions either.
Yep.
As a result, I didn't get much else from her other than she isn't very sociable and she only responds with a nod. And considering they blush together, it didn't seem to sit well with me as they would potentially result into an incest, if they were actually family related. If they were going for something more platonic, I wouldn't mind that, but I don't think having them blush at each other in such a manner would help at all. And then there's Limestone. I don't like Limestone. This character was annoying by her negative attitude. I know that sounds like a shallow reason, but every time she's on screen, she's uncomfortable to be around and acts like she's in charge of the rock farm, despite that she has parents.
Ma and Pa may own this rock farm, but I keep it running.
Sure. The world surely centers around you. Fucking brat. It also doesn't help that she has this psychotic look on her face when they were having the rock soup. Seriously, what is your problem? Unlike Marble, however, Limestone has a bigger role. She keeps mentioning the egg-shaped rock named the Holder's Boulder, which is later stated as a monument of the Pie family's history. This will later be shared by Granny Smith to the Apples after her interactions with Igneous and Cloudy.
You want to know why Holder's Boulder's so dang important? Well, now, their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Holder Cobblestone, he found that boulder in a dragon's nest, older than time itself. He built the family farm around it, even though it was just an ordinary rock. It's always brought them good luck.
Out of the entire Pie family, Igneous and Cloudy were the ones who I enjoyed the most. The interactions between them and Granny Smith was natural, down to earth, and it helped deliver some value in their family history.
Y'all gabbing with words real funny like. Well, what you say them names were? Iggy? And I'm just gonna call you Big Mama Q.
Well, okay, not all was like the aforementioned, but close. For how the rest of the Apple family interacted with the Pies, we do see them enjoy some of the activities and how they tend to bounce off each other. To an extent, it kind of makes up for the issues I had with Marble and Limestone, as there's some comedic effect. And for the most part, it's not really a deal breaker to the episode. One of the best moments I got from this was Apple Bloom and Maud's brief conversation, implying that there's something they can share in common. So while the Pie family has its hiccups, it does its job on the level of entertainment as long as you don't take these characters too seriously. And at the end, I was happy that they not only helped move their boulder back to its original spot, but that they got to share their own ways of how they celebrate. One additional note to add is the visual presentation. This episode looks very pleasing, providing a lot of nice scenery with house decorations and the glowing crystals around the house and in the caves. Topping it off with having evening colors in the background sky and the surrounding glowing colors, it creates a very warm, cozy atmosphere where you feel welcomed. Every time I look at the episode, it reminded me of how I celebrated Christmas with my family. Every year, we woke up at an early hour, like 5 a.m. Seeing that it was an early hour, it helped the tree lights pop out, and we had a nice warm fireplace as my parents played songs from the Mannheim Steamroller and the Charlie Brown soundtrack. Some nice hot cocoa or coffee was prepared, and we first go through what's in the stockings and then proceeded on to open presents from under the tree. We took turns on who opens presents so that we get a reaction from all of us on film, as my parents held a camcorder. Gotta film memories, you know? Some occasions, we opened one gift the night before, depending on the circumstances. Thinking this over, it's a bit typical and ordinary, but God, do I miss those times. Wow, I went off tangent there, didn't I? That was the nicest thing you said to me. I'm flattered. The final part of what I want to cover is from the beginning of the episode. Seeing Pinkie pop out of the chimney in Twilight's castle was a cute and funny callback to when she played her role of Chancellor Puddinghead. There was also a recap of the Hearth Warming origin story from the previous episode, but done in a style of gingerbread cookies. On the surface it was cute, but it was too silly and watered down for me. To its credit, it was there to add on to Applejack's lecture, addressing that there is more importance to the holiday than just the presents. Yeah, I remember being lectured about that all the time. It was annoying, but it was the truth that I had to cope with. And it additionally shows how serious Applejack takes the holiday, as it leads her actions to the downward spiral with the Pie family. For how much this episode fares out overall, I personally found Hearth Warming Eve more enjoyable. It's not necessarily bad, mind you. It does flesh out Pinkie's family and provides a good lesson about respecting others' traditions to their holidays. It has a sense of joy and wonder, and the awkwardness can be more entertaining for some people, and it can easily relate to those who have a stressful nature to deal with regarding visits with their relatives. But I just happen to like the other episode more. Nevertheless, it's a solid, if odd, episode that is still worth a watch. So until next time, I'm Goldenfox, and happy holidays.